Good afternoon, Plymouth, and welcome to Cafe COA. This is Connie DeLego. I'm the Director of the Council on Aging, and I have some very, very special guests here with me today to talk about a very interesting project that I think some of you are going to be interested in partaking in. It's called the Legacy Exploration and Preservation Project. Did I get that all out right? I had to practice that. I'm going to just go left to right. I'm going to go this way and have you each introduce yourselves, and then we'll talk a little bit more. I'll have Dr. Bacon kind of explain what it is we're talking about, and we'll go from there. Okay. Kristen?
My name is Kristen. What would it want me to do something more than that?
Kristen, what do you do, Kristen? How are you connected to the project, I should say?
Well, I am actually a Bridgewater State graduate. I did my undergraduate work there. I did my graduate work there, and in mental health counseling, and Dr. Bacon is a professor there, which you will learn in just a moment, and we have just stayed connected over the years and doing different little things together over time. And when she formulated the project, she gave a buzz and said, "Are you interested?" I said, "Yes," and we've just been going with it from there.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes, hi. Victoria Bacon, professor at Bridgewater State University in the Department of Counselor Education, and I'm a psychologist by training and a specialist in group work and the project director for the Legacy Project.
Okay, wonderful, and we'll definitely get into that in a minute.
I'm Melissa Shea. I too am a former Bridgewater State graduate, both my undergraduate in social work and my graduate degree in mental health counseling. Dr. Bacon, again, one of our professors, and stayed connected. As Kristen said, she called, said, "I have a project." I said, "Sign me up." She said, "Wait, I haven't told you about it." I said, "I don't care.
Doesn't matter."
I said, you've got something, you tell me, I'm there. And so I'm really honored to be part of the project and to be part of the group.
Melissa and I graduated together.
Oh, did you? Oh, really great.
Together, so this has been an
So you must have
ongoing
made
thing.
quite an impression on Dr. Bacon when you were in her class.
I
We're
think
not
it
sure
was
what
all
the
you.
impression is. We're still working that one out.
Us back, so
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing.
That's wonderful.
It's been really good for us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Legacy, that's the whole gist of the situation here of the program, right?
It is.
Would you tell me a little bit, what does legacy mean to you? Define the word.
Well, I'm not sure I'm the best to define it. I might look toward Kristen for that. I think for me, having a father who was an orphan and a mother who died when I was very young and no connection to extended family, that's always been very important to me. And some years ago, a friend of mine got me hooked into genealogy, and it just opened a very different door for me. And that had been percolating for many years. The whole idea of exploring that, exploring my connection, and feeling no extended family connection, or my dad said, "Oh, we're English." Yes, in part we are, but I've learned we're Native American and we're a very big part of French, so he's probably turning in his grave thinking, "Oh no, not French." And so I think many of my projects at the university had come to fruition, and 3 or 4 years ago I was full professor, all my projects, no more promotions. I felt very free to do what I wanted to do, and so I decided that I would formulate a group model to work with people on exploring their legacy. And that's how the idea got started, and very fortunately we received grant money from the Daughters of the American Revolution, matching funds from Bridgewater to sort of, that was almost 3 years ago now, to sort of get the project going, to do a pilot project.
Well, it gives me two questions then. Remind me, I want to talk about the DAR.
Yes.
But what, you're all in mental health fields and
Yes.
psychology and such. What is the connection with that and legacy and in your project?
Yes, and I'm going to defer to my esteemed colleagues.
Melissa, you can go first.
Well, I think from a wellness perspective, that's what we're looking at, is really the word connection just keeps coming up and coming up. And it really is connecting, makes us feel balanced. It makes us give a solid foundation in the world. And that's what we're trying to do, is maintain those connections and give people tangible ways to do that. Many people have already done many different kind of legacy projects. They just don't realize what they've done. From a family cookbook to poetry to many people nowadays make CDs or photo memories. Those are legacies. Those are connecting you to your roots, to your family. We're looking at, you know, expanding it to our veterans for sure, because they know the sense and the word of connection, I think, more so to a deeper level than most groups do. They leave their homes of origin. They go in harm's way. They have traumatic events. They have brothers and sisters, and that's who becomes their home. That's who becomes their connection, and they share something with those people. And sometimes they maintain those connections. Sometimes those connections kind of ebb, and then they come home and to try to reacclimate into society. And we're seeing that now with our younger men and women who are in service, as well as some of our World War II veterans who, different time, different place. We didn't talk about it.
Absolutely.
We held it close. And those, just getting them to be able to talk about it and share that living history. And now we know with our younger veterans that we need to talk about it. We need to help them reconnect into society and to reconnect with their families, help us as the families. Understand, where were you? What did you do? What are the relationships you had? Deployment means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and coming back is a very different. They have two different lives, so it's bridging that, and I think we want to help be part of that bridge, a bridge to wellness and a bridge to connection.
And I would think that the sooner the better. Because,
Absolutely.
you know, and for instance, we talked a little bit about World War II veterans that I have had the pleasure of interviewing, and some actually Navajo code talkers, who these gentlemen and the ladies didn't tell their stories. And so during the course of the interview, they would break down in tears, and their hearts would just would open. And they would say, I've never told that to anybody. And they might have been 83 years old or 85 years old, you know, and it's like, it was so healing, even at that point in their life. So I would imagine if you've got the poor kids coming home now, they've got to talk about this. They've got to get that off, you know. I would pray that as much mental health and this type of treatment goes into their treatments, you know, as if it's a broken arm, you know, this is so.
Well, and as we said just before we started the show a little bit too, about very often when you're doing some legacy work, very often you need to take some space from it at times too, because sometimes when you're doing the research, you never know what you're going to find. And it doesn't mean that it's bad, it just means it can be overwhelming and it's just not what you expected to find. And it can be a little much.
It can, yeah. You said that you were doing this yourself. Did you find, speaking from all of what we've said so far, what kind of an effect did it have on your life when you started digging into your own history?
It remarkably changed my life, all good ways. And I think that's why I wish to share it. The first piece was that I've done a lot of cemetery work, and that has been overwhelming in the sense that I've had a lot of very strong coincidences that have happened during cemetery work that have been emotionally overwhelming. I've uncovered a lot of people and extended family. I think both with the advent of technology, which wasn't available when I started, material comes to you very quickly. And the other thing is I've now connected with my mother's extended family and her siblings. I've met several. I've met a cousin once removed while she was still living, who is the person who introduced me to the Daughters of the American Revolution. She said, "Are you interested?" And the next day I got a telephone call from a DAR member who said, "I'm here to help with your application." Gail Terry, who now is the Massachusetts Regent for the Daughters of the American Revolution, who's been a huge part of this project and a supporter. So I became a member. I am a member. I'm really liked belonging, and I've been down to Washington, and the group has been incredibly supportive. They really believe in the mission of the veterans, but they also believe in the project, and that's what DAR is all about, is connecting people historically. They pay it back, and they pay it forward. They do a lot of prevention and education and so forth. So it feels like a good fit, and yeah, I'm a proud member.
Well, I'm glad to hear you talk about that, because we have a very active group here in Plymouth too, with the Daughters of the American Revolution. I've met some of them, know them well, and they come to the Council on Aging for meet and greets when there's an election going on, that we get the right word, that we get the honest word. You know, here this side and here's this side, and listen to the two of them, and then make some sense out of it. They're not going to tell you how to vote, but they're going to explain to you what is going on, and that's what I appreciate, especially because we get confused. You see signs everywhere, and if you don't know the people, you don't want to just go in and check off a name because you saw it. It's important to have the history behind that. What is the long-term effect of this kind of a project? What do you see in the future for this, and just to continue the programs, but
one of the things that this year I was awarded the Presidential Fellowship from Bridgewater State University, and it is their highest award, and I'm very, very excited about that.
Very proud of you.
What it does is gives me 1 year not to teach, and a stipend, and a graduate research assistant, and it allows us to really get this project moving. What they have required, and it's a great thing, is to collect data. So we are using, Dr. Riff from Oregon has contributed her wellness scales for us. And so we started last year using it. We're doing pre-post tests. And this year we're going to do also, in addition, some qualitative material. So we want to look to measure, are we having an impact? The other thing is we'll be looking at veterans versus non-veterans. Have we made it equally an impact with different groups of people? So we're very excited that this will be evidence-based.
That is great, and so that they will be following this too, and if it's something that is replicable,
yes,
it can be done everywhere.
Well, we'd like it to be able to be replicated, and I'm urging my esteemed colleagues to work with me on developing the model in a written form. And that requires a lot of work, and so it's something that we've been talking about, that can we begin training trainers to do this?
I was going to say, so at some point it would be, if it were up and running enough, we'd have group facilitators training other group facilitators to then be running these so many groups that we have.
Let me see if I understand then. It would be a group of men or women.
Yes.
Do you have mixed groups, or would it be one or the other? I only ask, sometimes it's people will talk easier if it's one or the other.
Absolutely. Well, why don't we talk a little bit about how it ran last year, and then some of our vision for next year. So do you want to say just a little bit about, we had 3 groups last year.
Well, we had 3 groups last year, and the co-facilitator model is really a nice model, because it's a nice flow and balance instead of one person kind of just directing it. And it's really what we try to do is have we try to guide and direct, not tell what to do. I think it's more about having them explore and talk about it. We had 3 women in our first group. They were all former veterans, all very different experiences. And I think that does make, when we're looking at groups and we're looking at individuals, we would definitely want to look at where are people going to have a comfort level. Because if they are sharing and they are opening up, I think we do have to look at the makeup of the groups, whether it's all male, all female. I know that worked really well with the women that we had. It was an all-female group, and that worked really well.
Right. Yeah, so last year's model was eight weeks, women veterans.
Right.
And the idea that they would have a project that they wanted to do when they came in, and we would just sort of oversee it. They would come in each week, let us know what kind of progress they were making, and we would kind of process that within the group. But I think this year the idea is that it's opened up more towards anyone that wants to come in the group, male, female, whether you're a veteran or not, and it will run for 10 weeks. Because we found that 8 weeks to do some of these projects, if we're going to talk about those at some point, excuse me, was really just not enough time. We would spend the first couple of weeks really just checking in about what is legacy exploration and preservation.
Well, we did use this quite a bit too. This book about creating a spiritual legacy, and Kristen and I. There's different assignments in it, and we would almost use it as like a springboard. So they would have that assignment to kind of think about, ponder, journal about for the week, and we found that this really took up quite a bit of the time.
Let me back up a little bit. How do you present this to get your recruits? How do you recruit people to come into it? Do you just say, we're doing a legacy project, and they say, what's that?
We have a flyer. This is approved by the Institutional Review Board at Bridgewater, which represents the federal institutional review for conducting research and working with what they call human subjects, so for us it's group members. And so we have a flyer that we send out, and we make a lot of connections. And what we do is have a telephone number and an email and so forth. And people have been contacting us, and then we can talk with them, answer their questions. What could the group be like? How many people in the group? Where might we be running them? What are their concerns? So we do that ahead of time. And then we even do group screenings where people come in and ask more questions.
So this is the what you're talking about.
The call for group members.
So if I were to post this at the Council on Aging, I know you can't read it right there, but tiny print. If I were to post this at the Council on Aging, would you be willing to have people call and maybe set up
absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Because so many people at the Council on Aging who have just these wonderful stories and legacies, and we've tried on a couple of occasions. It's just hard sometimes to get the groups together.
Yes.
You know, because it isn't there's no template, there's no program to follow.
Okay.
So to have people come together and say, my idea was, I've always wanted to document their histories in one way or another, because I know they're going. I just know they're leaving. You know, we have 80 and 90-year-old beautiful people.
Yes.
You know, I just lost a dear member yesterday. So, and fortunately I did get some of her story, but they have to be told. You know, they have to be told. So I know we'd get people to be interested in this. I'd love to have you come to Plymouth and do this.
Absolutely.
And this doesn't have to be COA members either, right?
That's
we can
correct.
put this out on Facebook, and anybody. Is there an age limit or anything?
Nope.
I mean, you want, none.
And one of the niceties about the openness of it is there's a variety of projects that people can do that are very tangible. But like you were just saying, you know, you can do oral histories, or you can do, as Melissa referenced, the spiritual legacy, which is much more of, you can do a narrative, or you could
self-reflective,
or just passing on wisdom, passing on blessings, passing on in a much more subtle way.
So it isn't just talking. It's not like a support group where you sit and you discuss what it was like when you were 5.
Right.
This is more putting something together to show your actual legacy, your ancestry, so that you have then something to pass on.
Sometimes it's showing your ancestry, because looking back is important, but sometimes it's about telling your story for
the next
someone else.
Sure.
You know, you can identify someone or just leave it in place.
That's got to be validating. I mean, that's got to make you feel so wonderful. To know where you came from, like you discovered, you know, we talked earlier, I have a similar situation where I really don't know my grandparents or where I'm from or anything like that, and it would be just absolutely, my kids ask me and I have nothing to tell them. You know, and they're all grown up now, and we're talking about doing their dad's Italian family that came over and the whole thing, and it's just so important to know who you are, because it does change your makeup.
I think this is a less threatening format also. I think if it were just a support group where people just had to sit and talk, that can be very intimidating, and people will say, well, I don't have a story. I don't need that. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to journal, because what am I going to write about? So there are several different things that people can do, and they do have something to say. They do. Sometimes we just have to stimulate it and kind of come around in a non-evasive kind of way, and I think that's what we're trying to do, is allow them the freedom without feeling threatened or overwhelmed by it, but then they do have something like, I did have something to say, or I did have something to share.
Well, one's very therapeutic group counseling, and that's not what we're doing, and one's very task focused, and that's more what You know, it has a therapeutic component to it because it's
Sure.
healing and it's
Yeah.
growth
Yes.
and feels good.
Sure.
Right.
But and there's a goal, but
Yes.
the task makes it very focused.
I think so too, and I think by putting it together with a task, the mental health aspect of it, like you're
there.
saying, is there.
Right.
It's understated. It's not like, well, I'm going to go see my shrink today, you know, or I'm too old for that, or any.
Which is fine.
You know, any number. Yeah, not that it's a bad thing.
But it is something that you could share with other people.
It
You
is,
could
and
share
it's-
with your families.
The elders, you know, I'm saying 75 up.
That's right.
It's still very reluctant to do anything that is called mental health, you know, or
Exactly.
psychiatry, psychology, because there's such a misunderstanding
Sure.
of what that's all about.
Yep.
This is very understandable. They love some of them love journaling, but they love the scrapbooking. You know, and putting these. Would you
Yes.
show us a couple of things, Melissa, that you might have there? What's this big book right here with
This
the,
one here?
Yeah, that's,
My son was critically ill when he was 15 years old. He, much like Tom Brady, got a staph infection. It was a very convoluted and crazy journey. But the Children's Hospital, they are phenomenal, and they do what's called the care pages. And for me, I couldn't communicate with anybody. I was just in the here and now. But my husband needed to write. My husband needed to process. He needed to write. And it was his kind of job to keep our friends and family updated. What this is my son when he was, you know, healed and well. But these are all of the emails that we received. They're updates that my husband wrote about the time that day. They were like up to the minute. And just all of our family and friends, nurses, just teachers, anybody that they could go in and they could give us all, you know, the moral support. Because so many people feel like, well, what can I do? What can I do? There's nothing that we can do. We can't reach out to them. What can we do? So this is for him. I mean, this doesn't define who he is, but this is a story of his. And his dad and all of his family and friends have been able to chronicle that piece of time for him.
And I imagine your son is very strong. He's in the military too, but if he were ever to feel down at some point, oh, nobody loves me.
Yes. This is my oldest son. My youngest son is my military boy. He's the one who's always been.
That's this one
That's
here.
the-
Yeah, go ahead. You can take
I
that
have
one.
only a few minutes left, but I'd love to have you say what
This
this
is
is and
lovely.
just really
Oh,
quickly. I love this idea.
We did projects right along with our first group members, and this was my project. I've never decoupaged ever in my life, but what I did is I made him a box. He was going away to boot camp, and I needed some way to chronicle this. I needed some way to deal with my mother, as a mother being not in communication with my baby. So I made this look very old and well world traveled, because he will be. And this is his box, actually. It contains all of his letters that he wrote home, you know, any awards that he's gotten or things that he needs, and his original Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. So that's his box. So that's his legacy. He's 18. He doesn't care about it now, but he will. He will someday.
He will, absolutely.
So.
Yep.
So this is a wonderful project. This is something that is dear to my heart as it is to yours. I was thrilled when Roxanne and Melissa came in to tell me about this project, because it's something that I so would love to share with the seniors and anybody. But
Yes.
of course,
Absolutely.
being at the Council on Aging, that's where I
Absolutely.
would love to see it start. So
Absolutely.
what I will do, with your permission, is I will make sure
Absolutely.
that this gets out.
Yes.
You know, to as many
Please.
people. We'll post it as much as we can and,
So
tell
grateful.
people about it, and we're
Yes.
telling them about it now.
Yes.
And even if you're watching and it's something that sounds interesting to you, that you would love to be a part of, then get in touch with us. Call me at the Council on Aging. You know the
Absolutely.
number there.
Absolutely.
It's
Yes.
508-830-4230, which is probably
Yes.
up on the screen later on. And we have the email address for Dr. Bacon if you want to get in touch with the Legacy Project itself and the people involved in it to sign up for it. And as soon as is there a cap on the number of people?
If there's a cap, we'll run two.
Okay.
Exactly.
So it doesn't matter. Everybody call. The more the
Absolutely.
better.
Absolutely.
More better. And ladies of the DAR, I'm going to address you as well if you would be interested in participating. This would be wonderful. You all have great histories too, or you wouldn't be in that organization.
Absolutely.
So some of you may have background like this that you would like to share. Thank you so much for coming in. It's
Thank you
been
for having
a
us.
joy. I know it would be
Yes.
quick. I probably got more questions that but I love just the talking about it. You know, it's such an important thing. We said just briefly before we started that the whole thing, and this is mostly my, excuse me, my opinion, I get choked up when I think of ancestry. We're Americans, and we're proud Americans, you know, and our children are fighting for America, and our kids are off protesting for America, and different things all over the place. But we're so much more than just Americans. We all have heritage. We're all immigrants. You may have had forefathers or mothers that were here before, but not all of us are Native American. So it's so important to learn that. Get a sense of who you are, where you come from, what your ancestors were like. What did your great-grandmother do? What did your great-grandfather do? Were they singers or dancers? Were they poets, you know? Were they farmers? What did they do? So please get in touch with us. We would love to begin this project at the Council on Aging as soon as possible. And thank you again very, very much.
Thank you.
And that's our show for today. This is Connie DeLego saying be well, laugh a lot, and please stop by when you can.